Welcome back everyone to another week's PDH Deck Tech. I'm Joseph and this week we are in the Is It Guild, and our commander is Thundering Djinn. Thundering Djinn is a 3/4 Djinn for 3 blue-red that has flying, and whenever Thundering Djinn attacks, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. Now this commander has a very interesting ability. It allows us to repeatedly burn any target, so long as we swing with our commander. And this damage scales off of how many cards we've drawn this turn. So the minimum will always be at least 1 damage, which can already be good for picking off technical creatures. But if we build this deck right, then we can actually do a lot of damage with this ability for game-winning effects. In this deck, we're going to maximize our commander's ability, dishing out huge damage with our commander to remove our opponent's key pieces and put the pressure on their life totals. Now first things first, we need to draw cards. Like, a lot of cards. But remember, our commander's ability triggers on the stack. So all those nice blue creatures that let us draw on combat damage, those don't work for us. Even so, we have lots of options. Merfolk Looter can tap to draw 1, discard 1, and Frontline Sage can do the same thing, but it has Exalted, giving our commander a little pump every time it swings alone. Library Larcenist draws on attack, which we can order before our commander's triggered ability, and Sphinx's Disciple will draw a card whenever it untaps, which, if we're swinging, will be every turn. Alternatively, we can enchant it with Quicksilver Dagger, allowing it to ping an opponent and then also draws another card. And that's just the repeatable options. We have lots of instants and sorceries for this as well. Careful Study will let us draw 2 and discard 2 for just 1 mana, or you could use Ideas Unbound to draw 3 for just 2, so long as we discard 3 at the end of turn. Rush of Knowledge will let us draw cards equal to the highest mana value of a creature we control, which should be 5 with our commander. And Theft of Dreams will let us draw cards equal to the number of tapped creatures an opponent controls, which could really be a blowout. Finally, once we have amassed a huge hand for ourselves, we can use Tolarian Winds and Whirlpool Rider to trade out our entire hand and draw that many again, for just 2 mana. This will set us up to dish out some truly impressive amounts of damage. Now, some of you may have noticed a lot of these draw effects have a very important discard effect stapled to them. We are going to take advantage of that with a series of madness cards, such as Alchemist's Greeting to burn a creature, or just the Wind to bounce a threat. Or we could plop down Reckless Worm, a 4/4 trampler, out of nowhere. That being said, we are going to be filling up our graveyard fast, and we need to get it back into our library so we can have plenty of fuel for drawing. We're going to do that with Clear the Mind and Felden's Cane, both of which will replenish our library from our graveyard. But the best way to preserve our library is going to be with the Library of Lang. For 1 mana, this card gives us 2 very important effects. First off, it gives us an infinite hand size. Second, whenever we discard a card, we can put it back on top of the library instead. This frees us up to chain multiple draw spells together without having to worry about having to lose the valuable cards we just drew. Now with all of these spells flying around, we're going to get extra value with Pyroceratops, which will get a +1 counter for each non-creature spell. And Kessig Flamebreather, which will deal 1 damage to each opponent, will combo incredibly well with Ophidian Eye, which will draw a card whenever a creature deals any damage to an opponent. So if we get these 2 cards together, our card draw will go absolutely bananas. Now that we've gotten all this card draw, how are we going to win? Remember, we need to still be able to consistently swing in with our commander to get that damage effect, and we have a few substitutes for our commander just in case. To keep our commander safe, we need to have a 2-fold approach: protection from removal and protection from blockers. To protect it from removal, Shroud is going to be our best ally. Alexi's Cloak will give our commander Shroud for 2 mana and has Flash. Just as good is going to be Clout of the Daunimus, an enchantment that will give our commander +2/+2, Haste, and Shroud, all for 1 mana, which will really make our opponents worry. For protection against blockers, we have Aqueous Form, which will give our commander unblockable and also give us a Scry effect. And we can also use Phase Dolphin, which when it swings will give any other creature unblockable. Of course, the true heroes of this deck are going to be Whispersilk Cloak and Protective Bubble, both of which will give our commander unblockable and Shroud, and will be invaluable in our deck. Oh, and we can't forget to protect ourselves. We'll shrink any creature that threatens us using Diminish or Kasmina's Transformation. These spells will render any threat harmless, but will also put them within easy removal range if our commander only has a few points of damage to toss around. But just in case our commander does get removed, we need to have a few alternative win cons. With all the cards we'll be drawing, we can use Fists of Flame to buff up any creature we're swinging with. Tome of the Anima is a great subject, since it will have unblockable so long as we've drawn at least 2 cards this turn, and that is going to be incredibly easy in this deck. In addition, all this card draw will give us a huge hand size, and we have 2 great cards to synergize with that. So Kenzan Spellblade can be pumped for +X+O, where X is the number of cards in our hand, and we can activate that effect multiple times. If we can give this card unblockable, then it will be able to one-shot any opponent with very little effort. And as a final option, we can use Spiraling Embers, and just directly throw our hand size at our opponent's life points. And that is my Thundering Djinn deck. I really enjoy this deck as it gives us a very solid reward for just drawing cards, something we already love doing and Blue excels at. Even with such variable damage output, we can still have a very easy time removing unwanted creatures and throwing huge damage at our opponent's life totals. This deck is going to cost us almost $27, one of our most expensive decks yet, with that cost coming mostly from Whispersilk Cloak, Thought Vessel, and Ophidian Eye. The deck list is in the description. Please like and subscribe and come back next week when we find Religion in the Orzhov Guild.